The information you've provided describes 3 different methods for creating paper beads. I'll provide a detailed explanation of each one based on your text. One, the classic rolled bead concept. This is the foundational technique for making paper beads. The key to its shape is the use of a long triangular strip of paper. How it works. Preparation. You need a long triangular strip of paper. The shape is crucial. One end is wide, and the other tapers to a narrow, pointy tip. You also need a thin dowel or skewer to act as a core for rolling, and some glue. Rolling. You begin by placing the wide end of the paper strip against the dowel. Then, you roll the paper tightly around the dowel. As you continue to roll, the decreasing width of the paper strip causes the bead to take on a conical or tapered shape. The layers of paper build up more at the wide end than at the narrow end. Finishing. Once the entire strip is rolled, you apply a small dab of glue to the pointy tip. This secures the end to the body of the bead, preventing it from unraveling. Result: the finished bead will have a characteristic tapered shape, wider at one end and narrower at the other. The size and shape of the final bead are directly related to the dimensions of the paper strip. A longer and wider strip will result in a fatter bead, while a shorter and narrower strip will produce a smaller one. Two, cylindrical beads concept. This method is an alternative to the classic technique, resulting in a different, uniform shape. The key difference is the use of a rectangular paper strip instead of a triangular one. How it works. Preparation. You need a rectangular strip of paper. This means all 4 sides are straight, and the width is consistent along its entire length. You will also need a dowel and glue. Rolling. Just like with the classic bead, you roll the paper strip tightly around the dowel. However, because the width of the paper is constant, the layers of paper build up uniformly as you roll. Result: the finished bead will have a uniform, cylindrical shape like a small tube or barrel. By changing the length of the rectangular strip, you can control the bead's overall size and width. A longer strip will create a thicker bead, while a shorter one will create a thinner bead. The width of the strip will determine the length of the finished bead. Three, Faux-Wood beads concept. This technique is a variation of the classic bead-making method, with a focus on creating a specific aesthetic, the look of wood. How it works. Material. The process begins with the choice of paper. To achieve the faux wood look, you must use paper that already has a wood grain or a natural, earthy appearance. Rolling. The paper is cut and rolled in the same manner as the classic rolled bead, using a triangular strip. This means the finished beads will have the classic tapered shape. Enhancement. After the bead is rolled and secured, you can apply a brown ink or a light stain to it. This step helps to bring out and accentuate the wood-like patterns in the paper, making the beads look more realistic. Finishing. The final step is to apply a matte glaze. A matte finish, as opposed to a glossy one, more closely mimics the natural, non-reflective surface of real wood. This completes the illusion and protects the bead.
4. Magazine beads. To make magazine beads, you take advantage of the glossy, colorful pages found in magazines. The process involves cutting long, narrow triangles from these pages. When you roll a triangle, the different colors and images on the paper will create a layered spiral pattern, making each bead unique. You can pick out specific pages with vibrant colors or cool images to influence the final look of the bead. 5. Newspaper beads. Newspaper beads are made using newspaper and offer a different aesthetic. You can use the text sections to create beads with a distinct black and white typographic look. If you want a more colorful and graphic result, you can use the comic sections of the newspaper. The process is similar to magazine beads. You cut long strips and roll them up, but the material gives you a completely different visual style. 6. Painted beads. For painted beads, you have the most creative freedom. Instead of relying on the paper's original pattern, you create your own design. You start by rolling strips of plain white or colored paper into beads. Once the beads are dry and solid, you can paint them using various materials like acrylics, watercolors, or even nail polish. This method allows you to add specific designs like stripes, dots, or more detailed patterns to personalize each bead exactly how you want. 4. Magazine beads. 5.
Papier-mâché beads. Papier-mâché beads are a great way to create rustic, round beads from recycled paper. This method transforms old paper, like newspaper or junk mail, into a new material. Here's how it works. First, you tear paper into small pieces and let them soak in water until they turn into a soft pulp. Once the paper has broken down, you drain the water and mix the pulp with a binding agent, such as a flour and water paste or PVA glue. This creates a moldable clay-like mixture. Next, you form the mixture into small balls and let them dry completely. This is a critical step, as the beads need to be fully dry to be durable. After they're dry, you drill a hole through the center of each bead. Finally, you can paint and glaze the beads to give them a finished look. Beads from wrapping paper or maps. This method uses a different technique to create beads with a unique, themed look. Instead of creating a pulp, this approach involves rolling strips of paper. Here's how it works. You use special paper, such as wrapping paper, old maps, or sheet music, to create a specific theme or color scheme for your beads. The key is that the patterns on the paper create a unique effect as they are rolled. For example, rolling a map might result in a bead with tiny, layered snippets of continents and oceans. This method gives you more control over the final appearance, as the design of the original paper becomes the design of the bead. This method gives you more control over the final appearance, as the design of the original paper becomes the design of the bead.
9. Glitter or embellished beads. This technique focuses on adding a decorative finish to your paper beads after you've already rolled them. The main idea is to apply a sparkling or textured material to the surface of the bead while the glue is still wet. Glitter. The simplest method. As soon as you finish rolling a bead and applying the final coat of glue to seal it, you can hold it over a small dish and sprinkle it with fine glitter. The glitter will stick to the wet glue, giving the bead a shimmery, sparkly finish once it dries. Embellishments. For a different texture, you can use small craft items like sequins or microbeads. You would apply these by carefully pressing them into the wet glue on the surface of the bead. This creates a more tactile, bumpy texture compared to the smooth shimmer of glitter. 10. Shaped beads, non-rolled. This method moves away from the traditional technique of rolling paper into a bead. Instead, it involves creating beads from folded or stacked paper, offering more creative possibilities for shape and form. Origami beads. You can use small squares of paper to fold into intricate three-dimensional shapes using origami. These modular shapes can then be strung together to form a unique geometric necklace or bracelet. This method is great for creating beads that are not cylindrical or round. Stacked beads. This technique involves cutting out several identical shapes, like small circles or squares, from paper. You then punch or poke a hole through the center of each shape. By stacking these pieces on top of each other and gluing them together, you can create a thick, solid bead. This bead, will have the shape of the cutouts, for example a flat square bead or a rounded disc bead.